Hello, Kerbals, and this time we finally land something on the moon. Anyway, welcome back, guys. This is part 4 of my mining on the moon series. And first, before we go landing anything on the moon, we have to complete the space station. And one thing I had neglected was an escape module for our spacefaring space station personnel. Now, this will house about 11 Kerbals, 8 per pod and 3 for the command pod. Anyway, I was having trouble where to put the parachutes, because if you put them on the outside of the hitchhiker pods, then they'll burn up in the atmosphere. So I had a stroke of genius, put them in between the pods. We can put decouplers in between them. After we enter the atmosphere, we can decouple them, and they'll come down in 3 separate pods. Genius, a stroke of genius, I say. Yeah, so we'll add some to the command pod first, and then we can add some decouplers. And it was by accident when I found out about this. And it does work because I did test it on Kerbal first to make sure. Now you see I've separated it. But the decoupler is there, which makes sure the parts don't clip, because there's no there should be no model in between those decouplers, only the outer ring. Okay, what am I forgetting here? No, it seems to be good. Ah yes, heat shield on the bottom. I was thinking perhaps we should have heat shield underneath each one, but we only need one heat shield because they're all coming down in one go. And now a quick fast forward, and sorry I forgot to disable the music because this is new now in 1.0.4, and it does seem to have a few problems with this. But we'll get into that later on once we dock things to the space station. Okay, as usual, I will make this available to download, so you can download it and use it to your heart's content. But before you go do that, go and finish watching this video. First things first, we have to build a launcher for this, and I'm going to use my 80-ton launcher. Because I love this. I love the way it decouples the large boosters and then the solid rocket boosters. But enough of that, we now need to go to the launch pad. Okay, so off we go into space. And as usual, we need to get this on the inclined orbit around the moon. What I like to do is set up the inclination so we burn for the moon at the exact time we launch, and we do everything in one burn. And then we can mess around with the orbits before we get there then. The further away you are, the better you can, the less fuel it will take for you to adjust your orbits, so don't forget that. And for the first burns, we do not need to get the precise, we just need to get it so it's, if you need to get up and over the moon, if you're going to an inclined orbit, then do so there. But after that, you have to do your correction burns, or TCMs, trajectory correction maneuvers, as NASA would call them. And when you get to the moon, make sure you can set your inclination burn, your final orbit burn, so you match your inclination with that, the orbit of the station, or whatever you're going after. Now, this does take a bit of playing around. You can see, you have to use the normal, anti-normal by here to correct the slight inaccuracies. You don't have to be so precise. As long as you get into an orbit the same inclination, you don't need to use so much fuel. And then you can set up your maneuvers to your intercepts. And come on guys, that couldn't be too hard for you now. Anyway, once I'm happy with this, it does take quite a bit of fiddling around with. And that is because when you adjust your prograde and retrograde and your inclination burns as well, it alters each one. So you adjust that, your apoapsis change, adjust your inclination, and your apoapsis goes out of whack. So anyway, let's go and burn this. This is going to be a small burn. Yeah, be careful. I've got one of the, that large, I forgot what you call it now. I do really need to remember what these names are. I write them down before I go and commentate over these videos. Makes things so much easier. Right then, now we've burned into orbit. All we have to do is set up our encounter bird. And don't be afraid to use the plus and minus orbits. It does help a lot. Makes things go a lot quicker. Rather than having to time warp manually. That's what you used to have to do in the olden days in Kerbal Space Program. You had to manually time warp one orbit, try to do your encounter burn, and then time warp again if it wasn't right. But anyway, we've got our intercept, so all we need to do is fast forward to here. Warp here, please. And here we are, coming close to it. Right, I did have the idea of... because we got a lander already docked to the space station. I was going to dock this, transfer the fuel left over in that large tank to that lander, decouple this then because it's got Separatrons, so we can deorbit itself onto the man, and then hey presto, everything's nice and clean in orbit. We won't have it colliding with the space station by accident. And everything will be good because we have the fuel in the extra lander as well. But things you don't think of when you're actually doing it. You plan something and you come across to go and do it and you forget something. Yes, that's my mind, always muddled up. It's a mind of a Kerbal engineer. Right, what we're trying to do by here is kill our velocity relative to the target so we don't drift around so much. And then the idea is that you can dock. But you see, I've changed the nav ball to orbit, and that was so I can point towards the prograde. And that means when we fire off the rocket stage, the Sepatron will go into... that'll go boosting on retrograde and deorbit itself. And I have no idea, and normally in these situations where the slow maneuvering is going about, I fast forward the video, but I'm bugger it. We'll go with the slow-moving space ship piloted by Tedra Kerman. When they're girl Kerbals. Now, I think she's a pilot, so yeah, she's our health and safety executive. That'll be on the space station. She'll make sure that everyone can be healthy and can escape easily. Her main job is to save all those Kerbals. And there goes the rocket stage. Now, if we quickly pick it up on the map, we should be able to see the debris. And there you go, yep. We got multiple debris around on the orbiting the man and Kerbin, but we're going to ignore them. Out of sight, out of mind. Right, coming in for docking. Now, I'm not going to go through the entire docking procedures and everything, because, well, I've done it several times. There's a docking tutorial, Rendezvous and docking, and I've done it a couple of times in this series as well. So, I don't know, go and check them out if you want. Right, come on, come on, come on. We got several things to put on here. Because after we've docked this, we have to go and get a power module. And then we need a refinery to dock to this, because I want to finish the space station before we go and build our man base. Anyway, this is done now. Yeah, everything's cool. But what we're going to do now is launch something else. Ah, what the hell is this? I'm using the Thomas launcher. Well, this is the launcher that Thomas, I think Thomas, gave me the idea of using. And it's fine for this because, as you'll see by here now, I'll decouple the fairing. It's not a very large structure, but it does have our solar panels. This is our power pack, basically, for the space station. It's got solar panels on it, it's got radiators on there to dissipate any heat that's generated. It has also got fuel cells on it. So if we get mine stuff from the man, the oxidizer, and liquid fuel, if we mine that from the man and process the ore and everything, we can use those fuel cells to change that into fuel, into energy. Losing my words here. Right. I didn't put enough RCS thrusters on this. I put RCS thrusters, you can see it thrusting up and down, but there's none going full left and right. And that was a problem. You can see by here, to account for that, I had to keep on rotating it just it. Again, try to line one way up. All in all, this does take a bit of time. I think it was about 20 minutes, 10 minutes trying to dock this. And 30 minutes altogether, I think, was from launch to intercept. So yes, it does take quite a bit of time, this game does. And it can eat up quite a bit of your life. Especially if you're trying to edit these videos as well. These do take quite a bit of time to edit. But I'm rambling on, let's get back to the mission at hand. Okay, so we've got no Kerbal on this, this is all computer controlled. And the computer's thinking, what the hell has this idiot done? What are these idiots engineered on here? But in the end, it does dock. Yay, cool. Alright. Now I did forget to open the solar panels on video. But let's watch the launch of this rocket. Again, I forgot to transfer the fuel from that to the other lander. Small lander on the top of there. I don't know why I keep on forgetting. But we have to let bygones be bygones, because what we have to do now, so we see if that's, yep, it's deorbiting the junk, but there, we have to launch up our next part. Now I thought I'd leave this one as a bit surprise. You'd probably guess where it already is. It's on the 80-ton launcher. We're gonna get it into orbit, same MO. As I decouple that, and still no idea where it is. All you can see there is got a docking port on it. And I've got a larger docking port on the other side of it. What could this be? Let's get it over to the man, shall we? And whoop, oh dear. Yep, something goes wrong here. I couldn't work out what it was, but when the RCS thrusters disintegrated, I don't know why. Well, I think I do know why. It's because I had one of the struts coupled onto it. So, I think that caused overheating issues for some reason. So anyway, now that we're in orbit around the man, we come to our rendezvous, do a quick decouple. Okay, that's now deorbiting. Okay, so let's go and dock this. And first things before we dock it, I want to sort this out. So let's get the habitat module off and dock that to the other side. So we've got the power module on one side and we have that other utility docked onto the other side. See there, it's drifting off in the background. Don't worry, it's not drifting off too fast. We can catch her in time. Right, this thing is quite easy to dock. Although I didn't realise at the time, or is it this time, that the station was actually rotating. No, it wasn't rotating, yes, that's right. At this point, I was having trouble, well, Tedra was having trouble to dock this. And it's relatively easy, really. But for some reason, the magnetism didn't overcome it. Right, this is the one I had problem with. I only had 4 RCS thrusters on the top of the rocket. All the others had exploded. You see, I'm trying to kill the velocity in one direction and hitting the station at the same time. Emergency, turn around by here. I'm trying to kill the velocity in one direction, then trying to line up the docking port, going forward and backwards rather than using side to side motion that you can normally use. Because if you've got the RCS thrusters on there, then you're going to have problems. So I had to go to the backup plan. Use the RCS on the entire station. You can see the wobbling going on by here. There's no chance that I was going to launch another new module up to there. So yes, it gets done. Right, now the station, in all intensive purposes, is functional, fully complete to what it needs to be. And what is that large module on the end there? As I increase the ambient lighting. Now if I open it up, what we've got here is the refinery. And we've got the refinery plus a storage tank for the ore. And what this is going to do, this is going to refine the ore. We're going to dock it to the other end of this module. The, whatever we're going to build to bring things up. The space tag or something, perhaps we could use. I'll have to make an adapter for that so we have landing legs on it and it can pick up the any modules on the ground which has a docking port on the top. We'll have to work something out. I'll have to engineer something for that. So stay tuned for another episode for that, because we won't be able to do it in this one. Right, closing the refinery module. What we're going to do now is adjust our rover. Because before we can land a base on there, we have to find the best place to land our base. Now, we worked out that there's 5.4%, or was it, on one place, on episode 3, I think. We landed that lander, which is already docked at the space station. And we found out that we landed in 2 spots, found one good spot, which is 5.4%. Not sure if that's the maximum or the best place to start, but we can investigate it, and that's where we're going to land this rover. Basically, we're going to build a rocket on top of this, and don't forget to put the decoupler upside down, otherwise that decoupler will stay on your rover. We want it to be attached to the top of to underneath the rocket once we decouple it. Now, the idea I had while I'm trying to work out how to change symmetry from mirror to radial is we'll build a rocket on top of this. This will land the rover down. We'll decouple it with a slight bit of thrust. The rocket will boost away and crash somewhere on the man while the rover is landed, and we'll tip the rover over and go roving and scanning the man. Okay, this is quite a simple build. I think it's off to the next part. Right, don't forget to strut everything up, but this time do not put the struts on the top of anything like RCS thrusters, please. Don't worry too much about this build. If you're doing copy me, it only has to be functional, it doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, so we have enough thrust to weight ratio for this, for the man, and all we need is to add an extra inline reaction wheel. And this is to give it extra control, so any rotations you have to do in space, you can easily do. Right, put a large docking port on there, because just in case you want to dock it to something, to the base modules. Right, I'm using my 80-ton launcher with a little modification. Because the rover isn't that heavy, in reality we can get rid of those liquid fuel boosters. And don't forget to add the RCS. We've already got RCS on the rover, so all I need to do is add RCS thrusters to the rocket. Finish off our launch facilities and put some fins on it, because I was finding stability issues with my larger rockets. Especially with the big bulbous head on the top of this rocket. I'm sure this would not work in real life. I have to work on my designs to make them look a bit more aerodynamic. But then again, this is Kerbal Space Pro. You do not have to be excellent. You do not have to have a perfect design. And last but not least, SRBs, mini SRB Cybertrons that we can deorbit that stage. But we're on our way, with Bardolin as the pilot. I can't remember if Harkus is the engineer or Nina. We're either one. We've got an engineer, we've got a pilot, and we've got a scientist. And they're going to be going on the road using the rover to scan the surface of the man to make sure that we have the right place for a base. Okay. So first things first, we have to go for our intercept on the man. Well, in fact, actually, we don't have to do our inclined orbit because the landing spot of that flag is on the equator of the man. So as soon as we boost ourselves into orbit, we can get to the man. You can see I've got an equatorial orbit set up because we don't actually need to go on land. We don't need to dock with the space station, we just need to land. So after we do our burn, we take the stage, deorbit that module, electrons, engage our rocket, and now we're gonna land. You see the two flags, but there we're gonna land on the closest one to us in the big crater, because that's where the 5.4% I think was detected. And now we're committed to land. I have to admit, I did balls up this landing once, so I did reload. I haven't sure on here. Perhaps I'll do a compilation of clips of my failures. Perhaps I'm not entirely sure. I'll work something out. Okay, my advice for landing on the man is set some speed targets. I normally say make sure you're under 500 meters per second when you come down to 10 kilometers. But at this point, I think I was winging it because I wanted to land exactly there. I didn't. I had my jet there. I could set up to land on one precisely, but I wanted to do this manually. The problem with landing on the man is that once you reduce your speed, you've changed your landing spot, basically, or the place you're going to crash in, depending on your perception. Right here, I'm trying to line everything up. Right, at this point, I decided that I'll land in between the craters, because there's a nice flat area, or it looks flat from here, that we can land, basically, in. Rather than landing in the crater and perhaps risking landing on the edge of the crater. So I think last time I landed here it was absolutely dark, and I was lucky actually that I didn't land on such a slope that we tipped over. And I think that was Munmore. Yeah, we landed on there with Munmore, didn't we? And we say bye to Kerbal there. Going over the horizon. But now we've got more pressing matters. That service is coming up quite fast. Now I do have scatter enabled on this game, and it does reduce the frame rate of this game. This video is actually sped up slightly to make it a bit more smoother for you guys. I was having problems with frame rate with my PC. I think I need a new graphics card. Or perhaps a new CPU. Oh, either one, I'm going to upgrade it sometime. But not now. Right, the landing legs are engaged. We're coming down first. Yeah, the reason why I ballsed up this landing first off was because I was set in target mode. So make sure that when you're landing, your nav ball is set to surface mode. And if possible, land when the sun's at an angle so you've got your shadow coming down. That's exactly what NASA did when they were doing the moon landings. They would not land unless they had a shadow to guide themselves down, just in case something went wrong, the radar was not working or something. We're coming down hard, bit of a bounce. It's alright, just a slight control, and no, oh well, decouple. Oh, it landed, not the way I wanted to do it. I wanted that to land straight up, have a slight bit of boost, not enough to lift the rover up, decouple, the rocket would boost off, crash somewhere in the distance. But what are you going to do? It's worked, we're landed. Now what I'm going to have to do is work out how that scanner works. And hopefully that'll make sure we find the best spot for our mining. Let's make sure everything's enabled. We need our antenna out and everything. We'll engage a scanner and whatnot. But anyway, if you like this video, hit that like button below. It helps me out quite a lot. Well, it makes the video more visible. And if you want to, and you're not, why not think about subscribing? Because I'll be doing more of this series soon. Well, perhaps next weekend. And I may be doing some more games. Well, at least I've got one game called Take on Mars. So I'll take on Mars at some point. Anyway, I'm Orbator. Trust me, I'm an engineer. And stay tuned because I'm going to tip over the rover and try to get it up. This has happened to all the rovers I've ever sent to the moon.